Hello, this is Curtis Jones. I'm an author. I've written 14 books, 12 unique books, and two books that have a compilation of Dad's Old Truck 1 and 2, and one called Once Upon a Time Curtis, and a second book that has Love Endures All Things, Love Endures All Things Across the Creek, and Love Endures All Things the Deep South into one book called Curtis and Stephanie Becoming One Flesh. So there's the last two books that makes up the 14 books that I've written. And I've decided to start reading and posting each chapter of every book one at a time on YouTube until I have my entire collection read, read, I'm sorry, read to anybody that wants to hear them in case you can't afford it. If you get to where you want to know more in the stories that I've told, you can go to this website and it has a description of all the books that I've written. And it has links you could click on that'll take you to Amazon where they sell the books, or you could click on another link and it'll take you to the Montgomery Public Library where I presented a seminar on how to write books for yourself and publish yourself. Uh, Children especially love these stories. It causes them to get engaged in the story, and they don't need a television screen behind them to see what's going on. Your imagination fills in all the blanks. And I hope it does for you too. We're all children at heart anyway. This is another story from the time we lived near OK, Oklahoma. And I was going to school there. The story just before this, chapter 8, was after Memorial Day, and it was about we children, me and my sister just older than me, and my cousin Joe and his sister just younger than him, all went by a graveyard right after Memorial Day, and we seen the pretty flowers, picked them up, and took them to our parents. If you haven't read that story or heard me tell that story, it's in the chapter 8 of Dad's Old Truck 1. So enjoy that too. This happened right after school started. And we started in OK, first time we'd gone to school in that particular place. The title of this is Chapter 9, The Alka-Seltzer Event. Watching Others is a subtitle that I start with. It says, we still lived in the area where I went to school in OK, Oklahoma. I think I was the second grade at this time when this happened. That would make me about 8 years old. We rode a school bus every day when we lived there. It was about a 10-mile ride, and we were at the end of the route. So we were the last to get off of the bus and the last to get on the bus every day. Being last when it's time to get to school is very nice for a young boy, but being last to get off of the bus really stinks. Summer finally ended, having a few friends for company, and the long hot days with little to do because our cousins had moved to Stillwell. School was a pleasant break from the friendless summer that we spent most of the summer. Even though I did not like school, it was better than being alone. I think everyone was a little lonesome after Uncle John and his family had moved away. Mom started working with her dog after we started school. It was a little poodle about 6 months old. It had an apricot colored coat and it was cute. It went with mom and we kids everywhere. The big problem with kids going with you everywhere is they always ask to get out when the car stopped. The car began, in the car, there began a chorus of little mouths saying, I want out, I want out. We would repeat this many times, and there were four of us then, and it started almost like a ritual when the car began to stop. Oh, we were persistent, like most children who get away with more than they should. This little dog that went everywhere with us began to make sounds when the car stopped as well. It was a smart dog, and the sounds it made sounded a little like the kids saying, I want out. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's what it sounded like. It was, however, slurred and could have been said to have sounded like almost anything. But mom, when she heard the dog, she began to prompt the dog to say, I want out. She rewarded it every time it came close to the sounds that we made. The little dog began to sound a lot like that was it, the intended words it would say, that was intended what she was trying to say to it. That may be because that was what we wanted the dog to say. And so that was what we heard. Mom was sure that the dog was saying, I want out. It was more probably just a whine that mimicked the sounds she heard. One of Mom's favorite programs was a variety television program that featured everyday people that did some strange thing. Art Linkletter had a show at that time, and on one of his shows, he had a little dog that sounded like it could say words. This excited Mom and the rest of us as well. We were sure that we could get that little dog on television, but that never happened. The dog came to an untimely end before that winter was over. During this time, I noticed a peculiar thing happen with me. I had a recurring dream that went one of two ways. If in the dream I looked down this alley that was always featured in my dream, it was the most prominent thing of my dream. And it was paved with blacktop, and the backyard fences were neat and made of wood. I would get up in the morning feeling very good. But if, on the other hand, in the dream, the alley was a dirt road and full of potholes, and the fences on the backyards were rough and broken, I would get up feeling bad and out of sorts. I thought this was a normal thing until I told Mom about it. I personally think that it was a self fulfilling prophecy. I don't know. Somehow in the night, I would sense how well or ill I felt, and I would reflect that in a dream. Mom would have sick days every once in a while, and I would note that she would take a dose of Alka-Seltzer. When Alka-Seltzer was first on the market, it was a little while before a drink for the kids called fizzies, which was a soft drink that worked just like Alka-Seltzer when it came out. You would simply put water into a glass and drop a fizzy tablet into the glass, and it would fizz and make a sweet drink like root beer. That's the one I liked, which I thought was the best. On this morning, Mom got up and took an Alka-Seltzer, and I asked for one too. Of course, Mom said no to such a silly idea because I was not ill. I went to school that day and I thought about it as I watched a little girl asked to go to the drinking fountain to take her medication. At that moment, the idea came to me like a flash. I could bring some Alka Seltzer with me to school and be excused to go into the hall and take my medication too. It was brilliant. The teacher would have to let me go and I could go out of class for a little while. I didn't like school then anyway. Oh, I was excited for the rest of that day at how I had come up with such a good idea. This was going to be a mark of honor that I had outsmarted my teacher. I would leave the classroom and go to the hall while all the other students had to stay in the class and in their seats. I know that will have no I'll have to plan this to be able to pull it off. I will have to get the Alka Seltzer and hide it until I get to school, and then I will have to pick the right time to ask to leave the classroom. When I got home from school, I would watch, and when mom was away in the yard so that she could not see me get the Alka Seltzer, I would grab one and hide it in my school stuff until tomorrow. This was the beginning of my big mistake. I was sure that the medication would do me no harm. I would be able to leave class just like the little girl did, and I think that the purpose of doing this was to mimic the little girl and maybe mom as well. Not sure. That as well as it was to get me out of the classroom. Betty and I caught the bus that next morning and were off to school. I decided that I would not take the Alka Seltzer until late afternoon without a thought about what I was putting or planning that afternoon. We had lunch, and when the 1:30 break came for the afternoon recess, I took the Alka Seltzer and put it into my pocket. I'm surprised it had any fizz or was not in pieces by the time I had finished handling it. We went back to class and I waited about 15 minutes before I asked to go take some medication. And the teacher said I was excused and to hurry back because we would have chocolate milk this afternoon. I walked with such conviction to the water fountain and I took the Alka Seltzer out of my pocket. It was then that I realized that they were too big to swallow whole, and that there were two tablets in one package. It never occurred to me to take only one tablet. I would have to break them up into smaller pieces. I decided that it would not be a problem because they were brittle anyway. I began to break up both tablets and hold them in my hand. I took a mouthful of water and dropped the crumbled tablets into the back of my mouth. I quickly swallowed as much as I could, and because of the fizz, I swallowed only about half of the medicine. My mouth began to become pressurized and caused me to spew some out of my mouth and my nose. I then forced myself to swallow as much as I could and allowed the rest to go into the drain of the drinking fountain. I had to run the fountain to clean what was spewed out, and that required me to use my hands to direct the water. I had to dry my hands on my pants. The teacher gave me a look as I came back. When I had come back from the fountain, I was a mess. If I had not looked sick when I left the classroom, I am sure I looked sick when I came back. An 8-year-old may not realize consequences of physics and that when you generate gas, they must be expelled or they will explode. I learned a wonderful lesson on physics that day. I know that my eyes began to water and my nose began to run, and I was in a constant state of burping very loudly and catching the attention of the teacher as well as the rest of the class. I began to feel sick, and I knew why. It was more pressure than my little belly had ever felt, even when I drank a pop very fast, which, by the way, you never want to do. The teacher asked what I had done, and I told her that I had swallowed an Alka-Seltzer and then drank the water. And she laughed a little under her breath. I heard her. And she asked me to go to the nurse station next door to the principal's office. I laid down there until school was out. I must have burped about 1,000 times that day. I missed the chocolate milk that afternoon. I had to carry a note home to my mother, the results. When I got home, I was feeling a little better and the burping had stopped. I had to listen to mom's talk about how medicine is for sick and that if people who are not sick take medicine, they will get sick. I think that that lesson has followed me ever since that day. I heard mom tell Aunt Helen about this little experiment in the and the effects of physics and the lack of forethought of our actions. I never mentioned that again, and mom soon forgot about it as well. I have never told my children about that story, for I know that my children look for things that set us apart from them. This was a big one. I know that they would never forget it too. I am sure that there are things that my children have done that I'm not privy to. About the time I was over the Alka-Seltzer, Dad came driving up in his old truck, and the attention was turned to him and his day at work. Thank you for being with me through this chapter. The next chapter is the electric storm, and it is a very good story. I'll be telling that the next time I post. All of these stories are true stories. I hope you enjoyed them. I've had an unusual life, as have most people, but we rarely remember all these little events. And they didn't come back to me easy when I first started recalling. But if you exercise your memory and think and meditate on those things, you can retrieve a lot of them. God bless you, and we will talk to you or see you the next time I post. It's the electric storm, and there'll only be one more chapter in Dad's old truck after that, and we'll start on Dad's old truck 2. Subscribe to this site if you like this. Let your children listen to them, they'll enjoy them. And like and share. Thank you for your time and sharing your day with me.